Evan with Hyper Strategic here. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we're going to do what every other gun channel has done, which is talk about the fundamentals for pistol shooting, but this is my version, and we're going to talk about the 6 key fundamentals you need to know. First thing we're going to talk about, and the most important fundamental in my opinion, is trigger press, and then the second one is follow through. So with trigger press, when you're pressing the trigger, as we call it, pressing rather than slapping the trigger looks like this. When your finger goes, that's slapping the trigger. And what we really want is we want to press the trigger. So you want to take up all the slack on the trigger, and then you want to slow and steady pressure all the way to the rear, the same steady amount of pressure all the way to the rear until it goes click. Now, the follow through is when you hold that trigger down, you cycle it like this, and then when you let off the trigger a little bit, you hear that click. That's actually the reset on the trigger, and that's your follow through, so that you can pull the trigger again. When you reset that trigger and pull it back again, you don't have to let all the way off the trigger, and all of that extra time it takes your finger to leave the trigger and come back, that's time that your gun can be pulled off of target, and that's going to cause you to miss your target. And that's called dry firing. So if you hear people talk about dry firing, they're talking about no round in the chamber, no magazine, and all you're doing is you're practicing pulling that trigger with steady pressure to the rear. So barring any other fundamental, the most important is being able to pull that trigger consistently with that same steady pressure. That will make sure that the bullet hits the target. So the follow through is the second fundamental, and that's the resetting the trigger and cycling the gun and learning how to dry fire your pistol and having that proper follow through. The third fundamental we're going to talk about is sight alignment. If you can't line up the sights properly on your pistol, you're not going to hit the target. And if you do hit the target, it might not be where you want to hit the target. Now, of course, if you're point shooting, trigger press and follow through are way more important than sight alignment, because all you need to do is just point it at the target and you'll be able to hit the target if you have proper trigger press. Now, sight alignment, especially past 7-yard distances, is vitally important. So on iron sights, you're going to line up the front sight post with the dot, and you're going to put it in between the 2 rear dots. Or on a Glock with the bracket, you're going to put it in between the bracket, and you want it to be flush across the top. So you want to have even spacing from that front sight post. And then you're going to focus on the front sight post, so the rear sight post should be blurry and the target should be blurry. And that way you're getting this with the back sight post to line up the gun. And if your front sight post is off to the right or left, you're going to miss your shots those directions. And if your front sight post is dipped or too high, you're going to shoot high or low on the target. Now, red dot sights are way better than iron sights, because when you pull it up, no matter where that red dot is, that's where the pistol's going to hit. So if you have it slightly tweaked and not quite on target, it'll tell you where you're going to hit, because you can see the red dot where it's showing that you're going to hit. Now, of course, the main problem with red dots is you actually have to make sure that they're sighted in properly. And sighting in with a red dot, in my opinion, I would always sight in a red dot to 25 yards. That way you have accurate shots with the red dot at closer distances and at further distances. Now, the fourth fundamental that you need to know is proper grip with a pistol. Now, with gripping a pistol, the first thing you want to do is you want to take your dominant hand, the one that you're going to be holding it and pulling the trigger with. You want to make an L with your thumb and finger, and you want to make sure and put the gun, the dovetail, right in that crook of your hand, in that corner, and you want to make sure that there's no gap there. So if you have a gap, it'll look something like this, and that gap means every time the pistol rocks from its slide coming back when it recoils, that gap is going to cause it to move more in your hand and your grip will be inconsistent. Now, if there is no gap, your grip will be consistent every time it recoils, and that will make it easier for you to hit the target consistently. Now, the rest of your fingers, you want to wrap them around the gun like this, and you want as tight of a grip as you can, but you don't want your knuckles to turn white. So you want it just a little bit less than white knuckle gripping. Now with your trigger finger, you want that off of the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So when you pull up on a target, your finger should be off of the trigger up on the slide like this. And when you're ready to shoot, you put it on your target, you bring it back off after you're done shooting. That way you don't accidentally pull the trigger when you didn't mean to. So you're going to make an L with your other hand, but your pointer finger is going to sit right up under the trigger guard here, and then you're going to wrap your hand around like this. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to clamp with this hand. So you're clamping the gun like this, and then with your other hand like this. So the clamping pressure is going to help you pull the front of the gun down so that you can keep the recoil under control, and your second hand holding the gun and pulling the trigger. So the fifth fundamental we're going to talk about is recoil control. That goes hand in hand with grip. You have a proper grip on your gun to get that first shot. Now recoil control is if you're shooting fast, you want to keep that gun under control and you don't want it to come off the target when you're shooting really fast. So with recoil control, you don't want to lock your elbows. You want to keep them relaxed, but you want to keep a firm grip on your gun, and you want to keep your upper body in a good position so that you can keep that recoil under control. So now the sixth fundamental that you need to know is stance. That also is important in recoil control. Now your stance, generally speaking, you want it something like as if you're fighting. You want to be in balance. You want 60% of your weight on your front foot and 40% of your weight on your back foot. And you want to be like you're boxing, but you put your hands together and you've got your gun in your hands. You can control that recoil and you can move if you need to. Now the thing about stance is sometimes you might not have a good stance. You might be moved backwards. You might be tripping over something. You might be running away from something and then having to turn to try to engage a target. And so your upper body is the most important with recoil control and being able to keep the gun on target. Your lower body, not so much, but stance does play a very important role in being able to hit a target with your pistol. Now, a quick mention about breath control. With pistols, I don't feel like it's necessary to teach people about breath control when it comes to shooting a pistol, because you're not shooting a pistol at 100 or 200 or 500 yards. Now with rifles, breath control is definitely something you need to know with the fundamentals, but with pistols, I don't find it necessary when you're shooting at a 25-yard target. You don't want to be hyperventilating. That's not going to help you hit the target, and you don't want to hold your breath. Okay, that's not going to help you either. You want to just breathe normally while you're shooting. That's it for pistol fundamentals. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you made it this far in the video, see how long you can hold your breath while shooting. Don't do that, seriously though. And if you guys like this video, make sure and check out the 6-step draw. That's how to draw your pistol from your holster. I explained the 6-step draw in that video.